Well, The Head and the Load made its way all over the world after its London premiere, and now it has finally arrived in South Africa, and it's one of the massive productions Joburg Theatre has ever seen. William Kentridge and a group of outstanding South African artists created one of the most ambitious stage productions ever seen. Gregory Maqoma arranges the show, Phillip and Thuthuka directs the music, and Nhlanhla Mahlangu is one of the actors. Well, Nhlanhla and Thuthuka join us now in stage to tell us why the play has such an important meaning for South African audiences. Gentlemen, a very good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Good morning, guys.
Thank you. Good stuff. Good to have you on the show.
Yep.
Right. First of all, just tell us about the preparation that you had to go through, and I mean, to deliver such a spectacular performance for a show of this magnitude.
Well, it's kind of, I don't know, there's something about thinking pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. So I have to go quite far back, because this started in 2018, essentially.
Okay.
And the work, I would say, started when Phillip, William, and I worked on Triumphs and Laments, which was in Italy, 2016, I think.
Yeah.
And from that point, we sort of started thinking a lot about this commission, which took a while, but it took 2 years to sort of really conceptualize what it was about. Because after being commissioned and asked to sort of do a piece about World War I, it's kind of like, where do you even begin? There's so much history here, but there's even more that's unknown. You know, so the part was, how do we unravel something that people think they know but really don't know? And so the research of it took about 2 years itself. And then once we got into the room, it was something about like, how do we have so many great creatives in one space to think about the same thing, but give enough generosity and space for everybody to work in a way that will be productive? So I would say it was I don't know, I don't even know where to begin in thinking about how long it took us to put this thing together. But I would say a good sort of year and a half working in workshop, trying this, taking that apart, thinking about this in this way, and then putting it in a body, putting it in music, putting it on
different
stage,
stages,
you know? So it constantly found a way, sort of the way that it's moved. But I would say from like when we started this at the Tate Modern to where it is now, I would say they're completely different shows.
Totally different. Yeah.
So I'm also just excited to see what it's going to be once we get on stage here at home. Because there's something about home turf. There's something about working with an audience that understands the language of performance in a very different way to what Europeans do. So I would like to think that like all the work that we've put in is going to change again once you get here, you know. So
and you know, I know that there's always a different way in which different audiences consume your work. I mean, the European audience consume it differently to the South African audience, isn't it?
Of course. I mean, South African audience are very participatory. The European audience, they observe and take it in. So we very much curious and looking forward to actually playing it to our own people.
Also, I think the language. There's something about
the language as well.
The language where people understand you without you having to unravel it or sort of like break it up too much, you know. So I think on that level, it's going to be exciting to sort of get an audience that can react without sort of being told, okay, cool, that's a laugh line, now go.
Right. Because, you know, the message gets lost in translation when you keep on translating it. And just take us through why it's got such an important meaning in South Africa. He said that there's so much history in this play. It's got so much meaning in South Africa because it is about the African soldiers and carriers who died in vain,
and when the recording of and the documentation of the war, we are only told about the Europeans who died, the European soldiers who died, but our ignorance is, you know, it's also, you know, teaching us to look at our own ignorance, the writer's ignorance, and this ignorance, you know, for an example, for every soldier there were 3 carriers, and when one soldier he dies with his carriers, and for every machine gun there were 7 carriers. When the machine gun get bombarded, all the 7 carriers die. So, and you look at the statistics, and the recorded statistics is only the Europeans, but essentially most people who died in the First World War are the black Africans. And to bring it here in South Africa is to say, you know, to our kings, to our ancestors, it's almost like bringing a report, because we've been performing it in Europe, speaking back to Europe, and here we are to say in Ndabezitha, we are back. We are telling your story, almost like Sizophuza emthonjeni, to continue telling it again.
I think Nhlanhla had said something interesting before, that like actually part of this in being the actors and creators and performers on stage is we're acting as conduits.
Yes.
That really it's not just sort of like another performance. It's really a representation of those that came before us.
Sure.
And us bringing the story forward, but calling their lives into existence as well. You know, say my name and bring me into existence. And I think this is what this is playing at.
And just to interrupt you there, when you were informed that you'll be working with Phillip, did you already, conceptualize in mind, or did you have already in mind the look on feel of the show and how you'll deliver it?
Oh my God. If we had sort of started with the end in mind, I think we would have been in a very different place. There's something about sort of like trusting the process and letting it sort of deliver you where it needs to be delivered. But like my relationship with Phillip goes way back. We started collaborating together sort of like 7 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So I think we became quite sort of handy at being able to think and finish each other's sentences.
Okay.
I often think of sort of like collaboration or sort of working in a team as kind of a marriage of sorts. And you barter. You sort of like, I'll give you this, I'll go shopping if you go do that. And so I think the way that we worked is sort of like, I'll start that musical line and then you can continue it in this way. I've got a seed for this moment. Do you think that we can develop it in this way? So it became I would say like one body with 4 arms playing at a piano. The way that we'd sort of found a way to really think and work together. So it was something about trusting the process because we had developed so much in the way that we work as a team that like by the time we got to working on this, it was kind of just like, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? How would you like to hear it? Okay, cool. I'm imagining this. What are you hearing? And in that way, it was kind of a generous sort of like passing of ideas and sharing. And I think that can be said for the whole work, for the whole team, essentially.
And the team is made up of such amazing creatives. I mean, Phillip Mill, yourselves, and William Kentridge. So what's the role of William Kentridge here?
The role of William Kentridge is actually to be a dreamer and to be a visionary and to put it all together, where he looks at how does choreography works with the projection and the props and the sets, and how it's really making the relationship between the costume designer, the set designer, the choreographer, the composers, the performers, which is the actors, the dancers, the singers, and the orchestra. He then creates, an organic and synergy between all the departments, and while realizing the way he envisioned it in the first place, and support, and also giving enough freedom for each creative in the space, so that it is not only his voice, but it's these voices that are contributing to the common vision.
Nhlanhla, it's often said that if you're an actor or a performer, you just leave yourself alone, bearing in mind all the emotions that come with digging up the past.
Well, it's very, very important that for me as a performer, when I'm on stage, it's not about me, especially in the work like this. It's about this. I'm an actor.
Yes.
I go on stage, I reenact what actually happened in real life to somebody. When I talk about somebody getting shot, somebody got shot for real. If somebody drowned for real. And what is it to stand on that stage and call them by their names and say, this is an opportunity for you to say the things you could not say, because I know you continue to live in my DNA.
And what are some of the moments that made you so emotional on stage?
The moment that makes me so emotional on stage, it's actually the one that never seen by the audience.
Okay.
When we're sitting in the trenches, in the backstage, and somebody is passing, whether to go costume change or to take a certain prop, sitting there in silence when the actors are just saluting each other. The stage manager is moving the chair to a different position. Everybody sits in silence and give that humble salute to say, we even when you are not performing, the story continues and we are holding the one who is on stage. For me, that's very important. And that's the most unique thing I've ever seen happen. It only happened in The Head and the Load.
That's one powerful thing that is said, that, when you're not performing, but the story continues. And having said that, Thuthuka, how do you ensure, what's the importance of telling a story through sound and making sure that you are in sync with other creatives?
Well, I think that's a tough one. I do believe that the way that we sort of make sense of the world is through sound. Language is vocal. I mean, the way that we sort of like make sense of the world around us is sonic as well. So there's something about trying to encapsulate that and make it sort of like breathe on stage in a way that everybody can understand. And I feel the beauty of music is that it's an abstract tool of sort of like connecting with people.
Oh yes.
If you don't know a song, you can hum the melody and here you are finding yourself moving with the person. If you don't know, you don't need to know the words to know how to sing a song. Do you know what I mean? And I think in that way there's something about connecting people in a beautiful and sort of like on a soul level. And this is what this is trying to do. We're really trying to sort of like, how do we invest in a story on a deeper level and sort of move past sort of the surface, move past what was told to us to be the truth. Because as we know, the victor's tale is what marks history. And now we're trying to find a way to subvert that. And we're using sound, we're using theater, we're using dance, we're using stage. It's all, everything together sort of comes together to tell this story in a very beautiful way. I think the audience will be very excited to sort of see the eye.
Most definitely.
As Diana Vreeland says, the
most
eye
definitely.
must
I mean,
travel.
the fact that I'm thinking of the meaning, I'm getting goosebumps already.
Amazing.
Gentlemen, great chatting to you. Hey?
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for your time. Good stuff. Well, that was Nhlanhla and Thuthuka, who worked on the new play that will show at the Joburg Theatre next week.